There's a reason your grandmother's pantry looked different than a modern grocery store. She kept jars of honey that never spoiled. Garlic hung in braids from the ceiling. Fermented vegetables sat in cool corners. These weren't just foods, they were medicine, passed down through generations. Who knew something we forgot? If you enjoy learning about real food that protects your health, subscribe so you never miss a video like this. What those ancient kitchens understood might be exactly what your cells need most right now. Garlic. Let's start with something that's been protecting human health for over 5,000 years. Ancient Egyptians gave garlic to pyramid builders for strength and endurance. They understood it had power beyond simple nutrition. Modern science now shows us why. Garlic contains a compound called allicin that forms when you crush or chop the cloves. This compound does something remarkable inside your body. It activates enzymes that repair damaged DNA strands. Think of DNA as an instruction manual for your cells. When pages get torn or text becomes smudged, mistakes happen. Those mistakes can turn normal cells into cancer cells. Garlic provides the tools your body needs to fix those torn pages before permanent damage sets in. A study from the National Cancer Institute tracked over 40,000 women in Iowa for several years. Women who ate garlic at least once per week had a 50% lower risk of developing colon cancer compared to women who never ate garlic. That's not a small difference. That's cutting your risk in half with one simple food. But here's what most people get wrong. They buy pre-minced garlic in jars or use garlic powder. Those products have almost no allicin because it breaks down quickly after processing. You need fresh garlic and you need to prepare it correctly. Crush or finely chop 2 to 3 cloves of fresh garlic. Then wait 10 minutes before cooking with it. This waiting period allows the allicin to fully form. If you heat garlic immediately after cutting it, you destroy the enzymes before allicin can develop. Add raw garlic to salad dressings or add it to cooked dishes in the last few minutes of cooking. Your breath might suffer temporarily, but your DNA gets protected. The smell is actually a small price to pay for something that can literally prevent DNA mutations from becoming cancerous tumors. Turmeric. This golden root has been used in Indian medicine for over 4,000 years. Ancient healers called it a cleanser of the body. They had no microscopes and no laboratories, but they observed that people who consumed turmeric regularly seemed to have fewer tumors and lived longer. We now know the active compound is curcumin, and it's one of the most powerful anti-cancer substances ever tested in laboratories. Curcumin works through multiple pathways at once. First, it blocks the signals that tell blood vessels to grow into tumors. Without blood supply, tumors stay tiny and harmless. Second, it activates genes that trigger cancer cells to self-destruct through a process called apoptosis. Healthy cells stay completely unharmed while cancer cells receive a shutdown signal. Third, curcumin reduces chronic inflammation throughout your body. Inflammation is like kindling that helps cancer cells grow and spread. Remove the kindling and cancer struggles to gain a foothold. A research team at MD Anderson Cancer Center studied patients with precancerous lesions in their colons. Half the patients took curcumin supplements daily for 6 months. The other half took nothing. After 6 months, the curcumin group had 40% fewer lesions, and the remaining lesions had shrunk significantly. The control group showed no improvement, but there's a critical problem with turmeric. Your body absorbs curcumin very poorly when you eat it alone. About 95% passes straight through your digestive system without getting absorbed. The solution comes from traditional Indian cooking, which always combined turmeric with black pepper, extra virgin olive oil. Mediterranean cultures have pressed olives for oil for over 6,000 years. They poured it on everything. They noticed people who consumed olive oil daily seemed protected from many diseases that plagued other populations. Scientists now understand that olive oil contains compounds called polyphenols that protect your DNA from oxidative damage. Every single day, your cells produce energy through a process that generates free radicals as a byproduct. Free radicals are unstable molecules that steal electrons from your DNA, causing breaks and mutations. Antioxidants from olive oil donate electrons to neutralize free radicals before they can damage your genetic material. One polyphenol in particular, called oleocanthal, has gained attention from cancer researchers. Oleocanthal can actually rupture the membrane of cancer cells, causing them to die within 30 minutes to an hour. Normal healthy cells remain completely untouched. It's incredibly selective in what it attacks. A study from the University of Louisiana tested oleocanthal on several different cancer cell lines, including breast cancer, prostate cancer, and pancreatic cancer cells. In every case, oleocanthal killed the cancer cells rapidly while leaving normal cells healthy and functioning. Population studies support these laboratory findings. People living in Mediterranean regions who consume olive oil as their primary fat have significantly lower rates of most cancers compared to populations eating other types of fats. But not all olive oil provides these benefits. You need real extra virgin olive oil, and unfortunately, much of what's sold as extra virgin is actually refined oil with a small amount of virgin oil added for flavor. Real extra virgin olive oil should have a peppery bite in the back of your throat when you taste it. Medicinal mushrooms. Ancient Chinese medicine used mushrooms as healing tools for over 2,000 years. Certain mushrooms were reserved for emperors because healers believed they extended life and prevented disease. Modern research confirms those ancient observations were remarkably accurate. Mushrooms like shiitake, maitake, reishi, and turkey tail contain complex sugars called beta-glucans that dramatically boost your immune system's ability to find and destroy cancer cells. Your immune system has specialized cells called natural killer cells that patrol your body looking for abnormal cells. When they find a cancer cell, they attach to it and inject enzymes that cause it to die. Beta-glucans increase both the number of natural killer cells in your bloodstream and their killing efficiency. A study from the University of Florida gave people 5 to 10 grams of dried shiitake mushroom powder daily for 4 weeks. At the end of 4 weeks, their natural killer cell activity had increased by over 100%. They had twice the cancer-fighting immune power they started with. Another compound in certain mushrooms, particularly turkey tail, is so powerful it's been extracted and approved as a cancer treatment drug in Japan. The compound is called PSK, and it's been used alongside chemotherapy for decades with excellent results. Patients receiving chemotherapy plus PSK lived significantly longer than patients receiving chemotherapy alone. You don't need exotic supplements to get these benefits. Regular consumption of culinary medicinal mushrooms provides substantial immune support. Shiitake and maitake are available in most grocery stores now. Eat at least half a cup of cooked medicinal mushrooms 3 to 4 times per week. Always cook mushrooms because heat breaks down the cell walls and makes the beta-glucans more available for absorption. Sautéing in a bit of olive oil or adding them to soups works perfectly. Fermented vegetables. Every ancient culture developed some form of fermentation. Koreans made kimchi. Germans made sauerkraut. Eastern Europeans made fermented pickles. These weren't just preservation methods. They were health practices that protected gut health and immune function in ways those cultures understood instinctively. When vegetables ferment, beneficial bacteria multiply to millions of cells per bite. These bacteria do 2 critical things in your body. First, they crowd out harmful bacteria that promote inflammation and cancer development. Second, they produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids that directly communicate with your immune system. One of these fatty acids, called butyrate, has remarkable anti-cancer properties specifically in your colon. Colon cells use butyrate as their preferred fuel source. When cancer cells in the colon are exposed to butyrate, they receive signals to stop multiplying and self-destruct. Normal colon cells thrive while cancer cells die. A research team in Germany studied people who ate fermented vegetables at least 3 times per week. They had significantly lower markers of inflammation in their blood and higher counts of protective bacteria in their guts compared to people who never ate fermented foods. Your gut bacteria also influence how well your immune system responds to cancer throughout your entire body, not just in your digestive tract. When your gut microbiome is healthy and diverse, your immune cells circulate more effectively and identify cancer cells more accurately. This connection between gut health and cancer prevention is one of the most important discoveries in recent decades. Start with small amounts if you're not used to fermented foods. Your gut needs time to adjust. Try 1 or 2 tablespoons of sauerkraut or kimchi with 1 meal per day. Gradually increase to a 1/4 cup or 1/2 cup, serving 3 to 4 times per week. Make sure you're buying real fermented vegetables, not pickled vegetables made with vinegar. Real fermented foods are found in the refrigerated section, and the label should say live cultures or naturally fermented. The brine should be cloudy, not clear. Vinegar pickled vegetables taste similar but provide none of the beneficial bacteria your gut needs. Dark leafy greens. Humans Humans have eaten wild greens since before agriculture existed. Our ancestors gathered dandelion greens, purslane, lamb's quarters, and dozens of other leafy plants that grew wild. These greens are packed with folate, a B vitamin absolutely essential for DNA replication and repair. Every time one of your cells divides, it must copy all of your DNA perfectly. Folate provides the chemical building blocks for that copying process. Without adequate folate, your cells make mistakes when copying DNA. Those mistakes accumulate and increase cancer risk significantly. Dark leafy greens also contain compounds called chlorophylls that bind to carcinogens in your digestive tract and prevent them from being absorbed. Think of chlorophyll as a protective escort that grabs onto cancer-causing chemicals from food and walks them out of your body before they can cause damage. A major study called the Nurses' Health Study followed over 88,000 women for 26 years. Women who ate dark leafy greens at least 5 times per week had a 25% lower risk of developing breast cancer compared to women who rarely ate greens. Another study focused specifically on smokers and former smokers, people at very high risk for lung cancer. Those who ate raw leafy greens daily had a 40% lower risk of lung cancer despite their smoking history. The protective compounds in the greens were powerful enough to counteract some of the DNA damage from cigarette smoke. You want at least 1 cup of raw greens or half a cup of cooked greens daily. Rotate between different types because each offers slightly different protective compounds. Spinach, kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, arugula, mustard greens, and dandelion greens all count. Eat some raw in salads and some lightly cooked. Light steaming or sautéing for just a few minutes actually increases the availability of certain nutrients while keeping others intact. Don't boil greens for long periods because many of the protective vitamins leach into the water. If you make soup with greens, eat the broth too so you get the dissolved nutrients. The darker the green, the more protective compounds it contains. Pale iceberg lettuce provides almost nothing compared to deep green kale or spinach. Wild blueberries and blackberries. Long before agriculture, humans gathered wild berries that grew in forests and fields. These ancient berries were smaller and more intensely colored than modern cultivated varieties. That intense color came from anthocyanins, pigment compounds that protect the plant from sun damage and pests. When you eat these compounds, they protect your cells in similar ways. Anthocyanins cross the blood-brain barrier and accumulate in brain tissue where they protect neurons from oxidative damage. They also dramatically increase the activity of immune cells that hunt cancer cells throughout your body. Wild berries contain 3 to 5 times more anthocyanins than cultivated berries because they developed in harsher conditions and needed more chemical defenses. A study from the University of Illinois exposed human cells to a known carcinogen that causes DNA damage. Then they treated some cells with berry extracts and left others untreated. The cells treated with berry extracts showed 60% less DNA damage than untreated cells. The anthocyanins were literally intercepting the carcinogen and preventing it from breaking DNA strands. Another research team fed freeze-dried black raspberry powder to people with precancerous lesions in their esophagus. After 6 months, the lesions had shrunk and many had completely disappeared. Biopsies showed that genes involved in inflammation and cell growth had been turned down while genes involved in DNA repair had been activated. You need about 1 cup of berries daily for maximum protection. Wild blueberries are smaller than regular blueberries and often sold frozen. They're worth seeking out because they're significantly more potent. Blackberries, black raspberries, and elderberries also have very high anthocyanin content. Walnuts and almonds. Archaeologists have found evidence of humans eating walnuts dating back over 8,000 years. Ancient Persians considered walnuts a royal food. These nuts provide healthy fats that your brain and cells need, but they also deliver something more important for cancer prevention. They're loaded with compounds called L-gitannins that your gut bacteria convert into urolithins. Urolithins have been shown in laboratory studies to slow cancer cell growth and trigger cancer cells to self-destruct. They work particularly well against hormone-related cancers like breast and prostate cancer. A research team at Marshall University studied mice that were genetically programmed to develop aggressive breast tumors. They fed one group a diet containing walnuts equal to to about 2 ounces daily for a human. The walnut-fed mice developed 50% fewer tumors, and the tumors that did develop grew much slower than in mice not eating walnuts. When researchers examined the tumors, they found that walnut consumption had changed the expression of genes involved in tumor growth and spread. Genes that promote cancer were turned down. Genes that suppress cancer were turned up. Almonds work through a different mechanism. They're rich in vitamin E, and specifically a form called gamma-tocopherol that's particularly protective against DNA damage from environmental toxins. Vitamin E sits in your cell membranes and intercepts free radicals before they can penetrate into the cell nucleus where your DNA lives. Population studies show that people who eat nuts regularly have lower rates of many cancers. A study that combined data from over 800,000 people found that those who ate nuts at least twice per week had a 15% lower risk of dying from cancer compared to people who never ate nuts. Aim for 1 ounce of nuts daily. That's about 14 walnut halves or 23 almonds. Buy raw or dry roasted nuts, not nuts roasted in oil and covered in salt. Store nuts in your refrigerator or freezer because the healthy fats can go rancid at room temperature, especially after you open the package. Lentils and beans. Legumes are among the oldest cultivated foods. Archaeological evidence shows humans grew lentils over 13,000 years ago. Ancient cultures from India to the Mediterranean to South America built their diets around beans and lentils. These foods provide fiber, protein, and a compound called inositol hexaphosphate, or IP6, that has powerful anti-cancer properties. IP6 works by binding to iron in your digestive tract. That might sound like a bad thing, but here's why it matters for cancer. Cancer cells need iron to grow and multiply. They actually have more iron receptors on their surface than normal cells because they're growing so rapidly. IP6 makes iron less available to cancer cells while normal cells can still get the iron they need. Laboratory studies show that IP6 can slow the growth of colon cancer, breast cancer, and liver cancer cells. It also enhances the effectiveness of certain chemotherapy drugs when used together. A study from the University of Maryland tested IP6 on mice with lung cancer. The mice receiving IP6 had significantly smaller tumors and lived longer than control mice. Perhaps more importantly, the IP6 prevented the cancer from spreading to other organs. Metastasis is what makes cancer deadly, and IP6 interfered with the cancer's ability to break away and travel. Lentils and beans also feed beneficial gut bacteria that produce those protective short-chain fatty acids we discussed earlier. A healthy gut microbiome is one of your strongest defenses against cancer at any age. Try to eat legumes at least 4 times per week. A serving is half a cup of cooked beans or lentils. Red lentils cook in just 15 minutes and need no soaking. Raw honey. Honey is possibly the oldest sweet food humans ever consumed. Cave paintings over 8,000 years old show people harvesting wild honey. Ancient Egyptian medical texts prescribed honey for treating wounds and preventing disease. Raw honey contains enzymes, antioxidants, and compounds that modern research shows can protect your DNA and slow cancer growth. One compound in particular, called caffeic acid phenylethyl ester, or CAPE, has been extensively studied for anti-cancer properties. CAPE prevents cancer cells from developing new blood vessels to feed themselves. It also triggers a stress response in cancer cells that causes them to stop dividing. Normal cells are unaffected. Honey also contains hydrogen peroxide at levels that kill bacteria and interfere with cancer cell metabolism. A research team in Malaysia tested several different types of honey on breast cancer cells, liver cancer cells, and colon cancer cells growing in laboratory dishes. Every type of honey slowed cancer cell growth, but some varieties were more effective than others. Darker honeys with stronger flavors tended to be more potent because they contained higher levels of antioxidants. The protective compounds in honey are very sensitive to heat. Commercial honey sold in regular grocery stores is usually heated to high temperatures during processing. This heating kills the beneficial enzymes and reduces antioxidant content significantly. You need raw honey that's never been heated above 100 115 degrees. Raw honey is thicker, cloudier, and often crystallizes over time. That crystallization is actually a sign of quality and purity. Use 1 to 2 tablespoons of raw honey daily. Don't heat it or add it to boiling hot tea because that destroys the beneficial enzymes. Stir it into warm tea that's drinkable temperature, spread it on toast, or eat it straight from the spoon. Look for local raw honey from beekeepers at farmers markets or health food stores.